2019. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask that everyone in the audience either mute or turn off your cell phones or other electronic devices. Item 2 is public comment. Oh boy, I can feel it coming. This is the time of the evening when anybody who wishes to address Village Council on any item that is not on the agenda, they're welcome to come on up and share any thoughts they might have. Would anybody like to address council on an item that is not on the agenda this evening? Seeing none, I'll close public comment and we'll move forward. Item 3, 93 Green Bay Road, proposals. Since 2001, the village has owned the parcel at 93 Green Bay Road. In the intervening years, the purchase cost of the land was offset by parking leases. Tonight, the council will hear presentations from 2 respondents to a recent request for proposal that was released over the summer, and afterward, will provide policy direction on the next steps. Actually, no, we won't be providing any policy direction tonight. Really, tonight is a chance for us to get to know the proposers and ask, and ask whatever questions we might have relative to the physical improvements in architecture related to their proposals. So I don't think that requires any policy direction, right? Sorry, Megan.
It's okay.
Okay, Megan to review.
So good evening. Given that introduction from President Rintz, I'll just focus on the process with the RFP to date. So in May 14th study session, the council reviewed the draft request for proposals on 93 Green Bay Road. Staff took that feedback in and the RFP was released on June 26th. It was originally due August 14th, deadline was extended, so we got the proposals at the end of August. I think one thing that's purposeful to mention, we had 1 mandatory and 2 site visits, so we tried to provide as much opportunity as possible for interested parties. While the village had received about 25 inquiries on the property prior to the RFP process, only 8 parties participated in the site visits. So it was already a pretty narrow field. I think most of the people who had indicated interest were typically users, not necessarily people that would have the wherewithal to redevelop the site. So ultimately, we got 2 proposals, one from ACS Capital Management and one from Rovers Custards and Creations. Staff, including Manager Bayhan, myself, Community Development Director David Schoen, and Interim Economic Development Coordinator Liz DeChant, met with both teams on September 25th. We offered them some feedback on their original proposals, asked them to add some clarity and refinements that we thought would help the council in their discussion. So they're both here tonight. I wanted to review what we've asked them to specifically present on as context for you. So we asked them to focus on their concept, including the layout of the site, the use of the building, type of retail, parking, and site access. Asked them to speak to market data that they believe supports their proposal and the rationale of the fit for the site. We'd like them to speak to the goals of the downtown master plan and this community gateway location. I think it's important that they demonstrate their knowledge of the community, the surrounding Indian Hill Business District, and any market trends that they feel are relevant. They've been asked to also speak to timelines that they would propose for their related development and share their team qualifications and experience. So ACS Capital Management is going to go first, so I will pull up their proposal.
Am I going first here?
Yep, all you.
Good evening. Thank you for coming. Thank you for having me. My name is Al Steppen. I'm the developer of 574 Green Bay Road, otherwise known as Fred's Grill. By trade, I'm a commercial real estate professional, which is kind of funny to say that out loud. I have 50 brokers in Chicago, 25 in Denver. I have a property management firm, and I have a debt and equity fund with my partner Lee over there. We do about 300 transactions a year. And every once in a while, one catches my eye. The last one was Fred's Bar and Grill, which was a dilapidated gas station, which is very similar to the structure and a very similar process to which I think we're going through. I'd like to go through the team here real quick. I've got LG Construction with Kirk Backustar over there. Kirk was the physical general contractor for Fred's. John Talty was the architect. John's wife, Catherine, was a lead landscape architect for the projects. Lee Kotler will be working with me over there. Lee is the numbers guy behind the project. And that's about it. We're here right now. What I'd like to start out by saying, this is a real estate opportunity. This is not just a restaurant. And it's a gateway location to the village, which is a blighted site in the community. It's vacant right now, it's been dilapidated, and it's an eyesore. So what I'm looking to do is reposition this property within the village and create an opportunity for a restaurant to occupy it versus be the operator myself. I have a leasehold with the folks at Fred's, but I'm not the operator, nor do I tend to be the operator of this facility. All right, let's go into this thing. I think you probably want to see the property as proposed right now. John, you can talk about this because he's the architect.
See if we can control this guy.
It might just be the up arrow in the top left of the,
Top left.
with it being a PDF. Oh, nope, that'll work.
Oh, beautiful.
That's the objective.
You want to get into this, Al, or do you want me to get,
Well,
do we want to get into the site?
Let's put in the picture first so
Right.
people can see the building. The site, which we all know, is the southeast corner of Green Bay Road and Winnetka Avenue. The newly construction project would be a 2,450 square foot restaurant at the southeast corner. The operations would be, to be determined, but, in essence, it's a breakfast and lunch facility. It is going to be, and how do I get down here, John? That's the one I wanted to talk about. The average meal price will be from $10 to $14. These are school kids and Metro commuters, which we will be catering to. I've got some siblings myself with nieces and nephews who attend New Trier, and I think it's price appropriate, which means it's challenging to deliver a building, the property, the rent, in order to back into those numbers. Ideally, it'll be breakfast and lunch, but after further study, I think it could be an afternoon establishment as well. We anticipate having 2 shifts per day with managers, line cooks, and servers, with approximately 20 to 40 people being employed. And, I will enter into a leasehold, and I will find and identify a suitable operator to be in conjunction with. Due to the proximity of the school, I don't intend on applying for a liquor license at this point in time. I think it's just too close and probably too much problematic, and I don't anticipate putting that stress on anybody, Could be subject to change down the road if the community would be open to it, maybe a limited service liquor license on weekends or in the evenings. But at this point in time, I'm not, intending on that or underwriting the project as such. Again, it's the southeast corner of Green Bay Road and Winnetka. John can talk about the site. It's a little difficult to see from here, but how the circulation is. But I think that's the most probably important piece we want to go to as well. So next one.
I passed out 11 by 17s of the site for people to look at it at a little larger scale, if it helps, just to understand what we're talking about. Just as a matter of introduction, I'm John Talty. Thank you very much for letting me be a part of this, Al. I was part of the team for Fred's. My company, OKW Architects, is in Chicago. We have about 60 professionals right now. We've been in business for 60 years as well. I've been a resident of Winnetka for 28 years, and have been very fortunate to have contributed not only architecturally to the landscape of this community, but also be a part of it in terms of I was chair of the BCDC. I was part of the downtown master planning process. So I'm very, very sensitive, to who we are as a community, what our culture is, and physically our strengths and our weaknesses. This corner was part of the downtown master planning process initially. The intersection of Winnetka Avenue and Green Bay Road is a gateway, as Megan alluded to in the introduction, and it's a very, very important piece of property, I think, relative to the village. It is it's an opportunity for us to create something there that I think will serve us for a long time, beyond just a simple edifice of a restaurant. but really more about the space that we create around it and how we engage that space, how we celebrate that space, how we make it safe for people to traverse the site, and how we communicate to those who are not part of our community that, yes, we're part of Winnetka now. You're entering into the village. The building itself is a very simple structure that is alluding to the architecture of, you know, what the previous uses have been. I remember when we were going through the downtown master planning process, at one point in time, someone mentioned that Winnetka was home to 17 gas stations at one point in time, at a single point in time in our history. That idea is befuddling to me. But the idea of this building as being this kind of transparent, service-oriented facility that is no longer a gas station or a service station, but a place for people to gather. Hospitality work is a significant part of our practice downtown in our firm. We've recently been fortunate to author a number of food halls, Astor Hall at 900 North Michigan Avenue, Eataly here in Chicago, Time Out Chicago, which is a new food hall that's going to be opening next month on Fulton Market. And we've done a few other facilities outside of the Chicagoland area, as well as working for Boca Group and people like that. So we know the food industry. We know how this works. We know how people want to engage within the physical context. But I think more importantly to this site is how people, you know, not only how we can make it a successful restaurant operation, but how we can create a sense of place, a pride of place for the users and for people just to gather socially. We talked about when Fred's was being developed, the idea that it was a landing spot for young people to come and on their bikes or walk or however and kind of gather and be engaged as part of a community. I think this is very much the same kind of thing. However, instead of being part of a downtown environment, it's really part of, it's this ligament between this great institution to the east, New Trier, and home to the west. And I think it will be a very, very successful venture as we move down the pike. I want to get back to the site plan really quickly. Actually, this is probably telling. When we began the process of designing the property, Al and I sat down, and one of the things we struggled with was site access. There's a curb cut there right now. It's fairly proximate to the intersection at Winnetka Avenue. And the idea of activating the site with a building that we hope would be, used a great deal of time, the pedestrian access, the pedestrian circulation through here, both from a commuter standpoint and from a student standpoint. Al really said, hey, you know what if we shut the curb cut down? And what if we eliminated vehicular access to this property and really tried to better engage it with the Metra and the commuter and village parking that sits along the tracks to the south? And so we did just that. We shut the access point off to the site, the existing curb cut, and we have studied taking the parking, the commuter parking along the train line and reversing the striping. So right now, you enter down by Nemo's, you come in, and you head south to north with angled parking to the right. One of our suggestions might be to look at this from a more of a macro sense and say, let's reverse the flow of that. Let's let the cars come in from the north and head south with angled parking to their left now, and then engage that same parking with the site itself to allow for access for service purposes, garbage pickup, drop-offs, DoorDash, things like that are all going to be a part of this environment moving forward. So the property itself will no longer house automobiles. It will house people and bicycles and the like. So that was one of the gestures that we, kind of decided upon as we began studying this thing. The other kind of grand gesture from a planning standpoint is the wall that runs along Green Bay Road, turns the corner down at Winnetka Avenue. It's not only an architectural feature in that it's holding the street and it's trying to anchor the property, but it's, and also providing an aesthetic opportunity, an opportunity for the village to sign that wall, to have it be part of this gateway, design concept that we've all established prior to this property being developed. But it also serves as a safety barrier. It also protects the kids that are sitting there having lunch, or the moms that are there walking their kids. It serves as a barrier from the traffic along Green Bay Road and Winnetka Avenue, and provides some sense of peace and sanity on what is otherwise a very hectic site at the intersection of two very busy roads. And depending upon the time of the day, they're busier, sometimes they're busier than others. So we have this wall around the perimeter which kind of anchors us, holds us to the road urbanistically, and then serves as in the foreground as the frame for the building that sits along the east side of the property line, backing up to the tracks, with the opportunity to open both to the west and to the north. The west side of the building would have a protected cover that extends really from south to north, so that the footprint of the building grows when the weather is permitting, and it allows an indoor-outdoor activity with overhead doors that can be opened. And then to the north, another patio is created with an awning that sits overhead that can be retracted to the building, so they can either be open air when the weather's permitting, or protected in case of rain or cooler temps. One of the things we also have to think about relative to this site is the grade change. There's about 4 feet of grade change from south to north on this. And so the idea of creating kind of two environments for this, one that directly relates to the building itself and the operations of the building, and then there's this notion of a dropped down piazza that sits at the corner, that really could be the place for the kids to hang out, a place for kids to gather. We provide site amenities there, seating, site lighting. Al and I talked about the idea of having a fountain down there, or some amenities like that kind of calls attention to it, perhaps celebrates the name TREVIAN. We feel like there's, we've created a separate park that can really be part of the Winnetka, landscape essentially, and can be a give back to the community, so that we're not only creating a retail operation, a restaurant operation that will be active morning and afternoon, and hopefully early evening, but also kind of a lower level plaza that can be part of the the gateway component that we've spoken of throughout this process.
Anything else, Al? No, I think you hit it all, John. I mean, grade change, signage, screening, protective wall. I think those are some of the characteristics that we're looking for, and especially the restriping. I think what it does is by reversing the flow of traffic, it creates a safer turning radius, and it dumps people out further to the south. Whereas, Fred's, we eliminated a curb cut. Actually, we eliminated 2 curb cuts, one of them being on Green Bay Road, which is an IDOT road, which we all know how pleasurable it is working with them. That's a 6 to 9 month process to get a curb cut shut. But what it did in return, it created an environment where people felt safe. Yesterday morning I was out there at 7:15 at the device of my sister, who's sitting over there. She said, "Go out there and watch all these kids out here." And I sat there and I saw them get off the pace bus, and 200, 300 kids basically walked right across the site. I mean, it is a pedestrian trafficked, causeway. So as a result, and John and I were sitting there talking, I said, "John, you got to build this thing like it's a park." I mean, you should know the intent and, call it what it is. It's gonna be a passageway. It needs to be a concrete park. It's gonna be trampled on. There's gonna be people there. It's gonna be a pedestrian traffic. It's gonna be a liability for me. And I said, the reality is that we can't have these people coming through here unless we find a way to control the traffic flow. And by doing this lower piazza, then it became, I started watching all these kids yesterday in the snow and the ice. I said, oh, geez, now we're going to have to heat those steps, to make sure no one falls over there. But, I think it's the right solution for the site because it creates this open air environment that's going to get trampled on anyways. So you're doing grab and go food and you've got the opportunity to sit and dine on site. You've got the ability to come meet people there, and it creates this real sense of community. You just got to look at the site, and it's an armpit kind of beaten up intersection of town. So just embrace it, right? And go with that standpoint of how do we manage the traffic flow? And to me, I think that was part of what John and I were talking about, what to do. It was really important to bring that in consideration,
I think, the more I look at the site, it's not so much about creating a restaurant, it's really creating a pavilion within the context of the park, as Al said. And how do we program that park? What are the things that want or can occur there? How much space do we have? We have a building that's about 2,500 square feet. We probably have twice that much square footage in open space, gathering space. Some of it can be a bleed out for the operations inside and outdoor dining. Some of it can be a gathering space for kids to, go and wait for mom or dad after school, or to go study, or, when I was a kid, that's where you went and had a smoke, but those days are long gone, so we'll eliminate that stuff. But I think programming that open space is something that we want to think about, and we want to solve together. We look to you guys as really being our partners in this and saying, what should it be? What does it want to be? How do those stairs want to work? We've kind of designed them to be not only a means of getting up and down and addressing the grade change, but also a place to just kind of hang out and study and grab a bite to eat, or have a cup of coffee, and
Or have a first date.
Or have a first date, or wait for the train, or whatever it might be. So we don't have all the answers to this right now, but we're confident that 2,500 square feet of food operations can fit in here and be highly successful and activate in both a physical way, attractively, and also activate from a kind of emotional way, an underserved piece of our village.
One thing, John, I want to also talk about is preservation and widening of sight lines, because what you do have is when you're going down Green Bay Road heading north, as a highly trafficked intersection with a quick turnaround there, what I want to do is preserve that sight line. And when you look at redeveloping the site, you're going to go vertical, you're going to go 2 stories, you're going to do office, you're going to do all these different things. What is the real use here? And the real use needs to be a single-story building. It can't be 2 stories because you're going to cut off your sight lines, you're going to reposition the building. The existing building's a dump. I mean, if you go into that thing and try to adaptively reuse it, I can tell you from my experience at Fred's, that's a $900,000, reuse of a building that we should have demolished the first time. We kept 2 walls up there to say we were an adaptive reuse of an existing commercial structure. After doing it, there was no way in heck we should have ever thought about that. And going forward with this building's a scrape. I don't know if anybody's been in there before, but it's disgusting. And I mean that honestly and professionally, I can say that because it's a scrape. But the preservations of being a single-story building, that sight line at a 45-degree angle, you don't want kids to be hit there. My nephews go there, my son's probably going to go there. Last thing I want to do is have a patron of our establishment, clip some kid in that corner because you can't see because suddenly there's too big of a buffer. So by creating that piazza creates a visual sight line that'll help the transition of the traffic flow.
What we're trying to do too is kind of layer that in very short order, in very small amount of real estate, is kind of layer how the site functions from east to west. We have the public sidewalk along Green Bay Road. We have a landscape buffer we have this wall that we penetrate, and we have a landscape buffer that helps to kind of privatize the site a little bit, quiet the site down a little bit. Then we have an outdoor dining component with an overhead canopy that protects us. And then we have this kind of walk along the building that connects us back to the parking to the south so that that's engaged. We want to make sure that if you park your car down there, you have a safe and logical way to kind of get north to the building if that's where your destination is. If it's the train station, we want to make sure that we have safe and logical ways for people to cross Winnetka Avenue. And most importantly is really taking care of the kids, because they're going to be the largest, they're going to be the largest population on this site. And we want to make sure that they're protected, they're given kind of a logical path, and we move them in an appropriate way south to north and east to west.
You got it, John. We love the site. So I want to talk about the Indian Hill District parking lot maps. So originally when I looked at the project, I said, wow, there's a ton of this parking, but we can't use it. So you look at, and I went through all the signs and said some of it's neutral parking, some of it's commuter parking. These parking hours are from 7 to 4, 7 to 5, 8 to 4. They're all varied. And there's employee parking to the south, if I'm not mistaken, or the north, down to the south, sorry. And it provides opportunities to activate this facility at the evening, which I didn't anticipate being a good, a real viable option, because I thought due to the 800 metro traffic guys come in and out of there on and off boards, 12,000 plus demographics from Winnetka, all these different variable people, that it would just be a pedestrian friendly site. But the reality is you've got a huge parking field that's not activated at 5 o'clock on. So you really have an opportunity for, parking, which was pleasantly surprised when I went out and visited several times. I want to get, quickly, because I know we're running late here on time. The architectural details would be similar to what would be at Fred's with the concrete wall. I think we've talked about that. It provides a sense of security. If you're sitting over at Fred's, on the patio having a drink, you will feel secure. You will understand that a semi won't block that wall, won't come through it. Car will give you a couple minutes to get away. It does provide a tranquil experience. I wanted to show the architectural detail, the steel that we went into to build these canopies. These are significant structures which, provide to the aesthetic of the building and the experience. The timeline, though, I want to talk about, because I know we're getting short here, and I want to talk about the reality of this. In the event the site's awarded and Sasha doesn't get it and I do, which I think is a great outcome. But the reality is, I think if in the fourth quarter of this year, we can execute a purchase and sale agreement with the village. We can get Altalti, the architect, and get engaged. We can get to a preliminary set of drawings where we can do a construction GMP. LG will give you the numbers that OK makes. We'll value engineer it. We'll shave things off. We'll make it right. First quarter, we would demolish this building, assuming the village would give me a demolition permit prior to construction documents being issued. I recall that being the case. So we'd be able to take that, the eyesore down and create some enthusiasm. The building would be demolished and we would remediate as needed. You guys say there's going to get me 3 NFR letters, or NFR letters that are going to be associated with this property. There's going to be dirty soil. That's just a reality of a gas station deal. Kirk can tell you we did how many, 388 tons of remediation at Fred's. We were building structures to put up our canopies. We were putting in reverse, hit another tank. Fire marshal came out, delayed construction, excavate again. We would put up another, footing, boom, we'd hit another tank. Unless the village has done sonar on this, you don't know what's there. I've been in this thing, there's probably lifts in there that are contaminated, have been removed, tanks to the gas station, but it's going to be a dirty site. It's just going to be the reality of it. That being said, I think in the third quarter of 2030, we could commence core and shell construction. I think it's a 7 to 9 month build-out process. I think we'd do the tenant build-out coinciding with the core and shell. We'd use the same contractor. I think it'd be estimated the first quarter, second quarter we'd be done. To some extent, exterior site would commence. We'd finish the piazza, we initiate it. 2021, second quarter, we'd finish it out, finish the sidescape, the landscape, the interior renovation would complete, employee staffing and training, and I think we're open for business in August of 2021. And I think that's a conservative but aggressive but a realistic time frame for this project. I've run it by the LG, assuming that the village can play and turn around the documents, I can perform. And that's not an issue, but I think that's for sure a realistic time frame. Open for business 2021 in August, ready for school. The team, all right, we talked a little bit about it, but LG would be the contractor, OKW would be the architect, Pioneer Environmental, who did all the Fred's work, would be involved. I worked Pioneer, they were probably the largest NFR security guys in the city, maybe in the state. Wintrust has agreed to finance this property. Lee and I at ACS Capital to be the developer. And then we can't find a suitable tenant. I actually am also, I run up a sales and leasing group, the commercial real estate brokerage. We do about 20 to 30 restaurant real estate transactions a year. And then we would have a combination of, landscape design. So the team's in place. It's very feasible. We can get this done in a timely, efficient manner. If we go to the developer profile and experience, it's 574 Green Bay Road. I think it's a testament, the team we put together, the work we've done, the ability to execute, and I think we delivered a property which, quite frankly, I'm really proud of. I've seen, several of you in the establishment. You all pay your bill, which is nice. And I think we've created a central focal point where you've gone on a Wednesday night and Carrie's had bands out there. We've had 200 people out there. And we've created this. So the track record's there, the ability to execute's there, and, I've worked with you guys before. That's a big issue. I've taken out the contaminated soil. I've balanced the soil. I've added more sites to the soil. We created a patio. We eliminated the curb cuts, the IDOTs. And I also worked with the village, and I gave you guys a switch, an easement in the back for the master downtown redevelopment process. You guys were looking to find your switch gear. You didn't have a place in the village. You guys came to me and said, hey, can I have this property in back to be able to turn the light gear on? And we gave it to you guys, no problem, an easement. So I've demonstrated my ability to work with the village, and it was a pleasurable experience, and I look forward to trying to get another one. John, you got some more stuff?
No, I think you guys are in a great spot because you have two teams who are local. We are the community, right? We live here, we're born and raised here, we went to school here, we've done all kinds of stuff, and so it's obviously important to all of us. We don't take this lightly. This isn't about this isn't anything that any of us are going to retire on. This is a feather in our cap and being able to proudly say that we contributed to this great town. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Questions?
Yeah, I think if you have any specific questions, immediately we'll do their questions first, and then we'll bring up the next group, and then if we have questions at the end in summary, we can always revisit.
I agree. Open it up.
Yes, Bob.
Yeah, guys.
John, can you go through a little bit again on the traffic flow? So we're coming down, we're only entering the lot going north, right?
Yes.
So you're on Green Bay Road going north, and then when you exit, you can only go north again? Is that, we're just doing that loop,
Yeah,
correct?
that's correct.
And so how are the pedestrians that are parked at the south end of the parking area getting to the restaurant when cars are coming in to the parking area? So if I'm down at the end, I drove all the way down in the last spot on the south end of your parking, and I want to walk to
The
the
existing
restaurant.
commuter parking. The
Wherever
existing
the parking
yeah.
is next to the restaurant, I'm walking to the restaurant. Am I walking down the parking?
There's I believe there's a sidewalk along Green Bay Road that we're not changing any of the parking that exists there
I'm not sure
now.
if there is, John.
No.
To be honest.
I don't,
No,
is there?
I don't think there is there. There's a sidewalk and the curb cut to the north, but I would assume that we would, the same way commuters are currently getting to the train now, they're going to walk down to the east side and go down to the Metro train station. And they do it now.
But I think they're walking kind of with the flow. of where the car, and your
In this
route,
scenario,
you're walking against the
In this
flow.
scenario, you're going to watch the cars coming at you
Okay.
versus
Yeah.
having them at your back.
Understood, but you know,
Yeah.
someone comes in, your 18-year-old kid. I'm just wondering.
No, I
Yeah,
understand.
no,
I think, I don't know how much real estate exists to the east of those parking stalls over there, Bob?
There's not enough for us. Sorry.
Is there not enough room for a carriage walk or anything? I've never parked over there, so I cannot. Yeah,
But it's
I
no
think-
different than walking down Mariano parking lot to get to the store. It's a parking aisle or the Grand or anywhere.
You know, you can see there is a walkway. I mean,
No.
it's, you're walking, you know, along the east side or the west side of that lot.
Yeah, we could paint the walkway.
You figure something, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But Bob, I think your point is well taken. Like, so, as we activate this corner, how do we, you know, we've addressed the specificity of the acreage of this parcel.
Right.
But how does it want to best engage with the parking across the street to the north?
Right.
As an example. How do we cross people there safely? How do we make sure that, you know, as people are walking down Winnetka Avenue from Ridge, how are they getting, you know, to our site and getting up to the restaurant or continuing to move east? I think it's a big study.
And it is this circular flow that you have.
Correct.
Yes.
On Green Bay Road, okay.
Yeah.
And to assist in your pedestrian, all the kids are already there.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah, I
like
mean-
they're already passing the site.
It's a four-way, you know, the intersection is crossed on all four sides already, so it's not.
Right. It's a
nothing-
big intersection. It's a
Huge.
lot of real estate there, you know?
It's not as big as it used to be.
No, I know.
No, but
thankfully.
it's-
So
it's-
all those walkways were
Yeah.
created when we redid the intersection in
Yes.
15,
No.
14?
Very pedestrian friendly, or
Signals were all
heavy.
upgraded, and some of that, the turning radius is very good as well.
Right.
You've done a great job on your presentation, thanks.
But when I lived on Hill Terrace from 86 to 97 or whatever, man, I mean, that's when there were still all the gas stations and stuff there, and that was a massively wide intersection, so it's improving over time, but, you know,
I'll make it better.
yes. Yeah, building this out will
Big
help a
wall,
lot. yeah.
huge wall.
What will you guys, in terms of the parking, you have people coming in at the north end of that long parking strip, and then I think what he's talking about is, and then they have to exit down at the far end, down by
Yeah.
Nemo's.
You dump them further away from the intersection of Green Bay Road and
Where's,
Winnetka Avenue.
how will you guys, because your hours are 6:30 in the morning until through lunch.
Yeah.
How will you, or how do you foresee the parking for your people being carved out of that lot? Do you see because otherwise I can see New Trier students coming in, filling the lot up halfway, and then the people for you guys parking down by Nemo's and having to walk all the way down. I don't know if that's how that lot works.
So I think as part of this reconfiguration that we went through, we were able to steal or extend that parking further to the north than how it currently exists. We were able to, we'll be able to kind of buy a few more parking spots that don't currently exist out there. And the hope would be that we could dedicate the first X number of those stalls to the operations of the restaurant, and then allow everybody else to park to the south, rather than force, you know, force the customer to park all the way at the south end and walk. You know, dedicate half a dozen spots or something like that, some gesture, so that there's some dedicated spots at certain times of the day to better serve the operations of the site. It needs some parking, but our fear was that with all the cars dumping out south to north of the existing parking, and then immediately another curb cut that had 3 or 4 spots or 5 spots in it, it's just a recipe for disaster. I'm just afraid of the confluence of all the cars that would be there. And so how do we do a better job collectively of solving it?
As Green Bay Road is an IDOT road, you know, we studied the circulation of would they give us another a curb cut, and there's no way. You're too close to the stoplight in the intersection there. So the reality of emptying out back into Green Bay Road is, it's not an option. So it's best to eliminate it, landlock it, reverse the flow of traffic to really access it, in the best way, in our opinion.
There is a barrier there now between 93 and the parking lot, so I think that's part of where the assumption is coming from. There will probably be a few extra spots in terms of changing where that curb cut and where the barrier exists.
Correct.
But I will say, again, having lived there for many years, and both coming out of the White Hen, or what used to be White Hen Pantry, 7-Eleven lot, and Northern Trust, those are both already dicey operations from a driver's standpoint, because the sightlines are really tricky. So if you're going to have more parking, more people feeding out at that point, you're right, it would be, I think it's a much better plan to have the parking plan reversed. Yeah, I think that's much simpler.
And Penny, that goes back to my comment about, you guys need to be part of the solution with it. We don't have all the answers today, but you guys wield a mighty sword, right? And so together, we're gonna come up with the best way to activate that site, because I think the basic thesis is something belongs there. So whatever something is, how do we best serve it? And how do we all enable it to be successful?
A couple of other questions relative to having, of course, students be the main focus for customers. School is only in session from, the end of August until the beginning of June, and of course, most of that time, the weather is not good. And
Chicago's the best weather in the world. That's why we all live here, right?
so, how have you thought about that relative to?
That even activates the site easier, because you have more parking on, on the
Oh,
north side.
no, I meant relative to your inside-outside spaces of the restaurant.
I think we're going to get a lot of traffic from, in general, the neighborhoods. I think there'll be summer school activity. The Metro train will be a customer. We'll be able to activate it from the Green Bay Trail. People will be coming in and out of there. People are recreating on this trail. The price point allows us to be more open to everybody. I think what we're going to see is that we're going to be catering to the service providers in the community too. When you look at it, where does a guy who's conducting, an HVAC repair go to eat? You go to McDonald's? You go to McDonald's, Nemo's is expensive for these guys, but he's going to McDonald's, he's going to Homer's or Nemo's. The price point for these guys who are providing service to the community, they're outboxed. And this has got to be an alternative solution to those folks.
Another aspect of that question is that a lot of the space relative to the restaurant has outdoor seating. And again, most of the students, the bulk of the students are around when the weather is more inclement. Is there any flexibility in that, or have you thought about that at all?
In terms of
Inside-
who occupies that space?
Right, well, a lot of.
the
a lot
weather.
of
If it's
the
raining
is
out.
Outdoors, so if the
Yes.
weather is crummy, do you have enough seating?
Yeah, I think, well, number one, there's a lot of protected seating.
Okay.
So the idea of, I think, again, beyond the students, it's the soccer games on the weekends, it's the Little League games, it's, moms and dads walking over with the little one, trying to grab something to eat or drink. There's going to be plenty of protected space overhead, and with space heaters and things like that, we can extend the shoulder seasons of this thing. The reality is, starting now until April 1st,
Right.
it's, the doors are going to be shut, and it's going to be an indoor activity.
Right.
And on those rare days, those 2 or 3 days a year, that we can steal, some outdoor space and a, space heater or a fire pit, that's great, but we all know what we're dealing with here.
A good example is Frederick.
Yeah.
Your number of seats inside versus your 200 people outside.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's cyclical, and that's how you.
Correct.
do business.
But I think this building also wants to have, vinyl panels. I think this wants to have the drop-down to have a four-season room, like the Hap Inn. You went out in that patio for years, and it was a vinyl enclosure, which provided them extra seating. And I think one of the enclosures wants to be that for also party rooms. you know, or you never go in that home or side room. It's kind of, a little interesting over there. But, this place does want to have an outdoor enclosure that can be extended into the shoulders months, as John said. And providing that opportunity would provide additional indoor seating. So, and it's a 2,450 square restaurant. There is seating inside. Right now, we're just not showing it. I envision it to be a grab-and-go service, it's a grab-and-go service menu. So you're going to have opportunities for, I think, probably 50 seats, 60 seats inside.
And I think one of the things that we, struggled with initially is trying to find the right balance between how big does this building really want to be? How greedy do we want to get? How, and I think it's kind of right-sized. I mean, the idea of a building about 2,500 square feet, and understand that, probably 30% of that is going to be kitchens and bathrooms and things like that. So you're going to have let's say a net building of about 1,500 square feet of occupancy. That's about right. And then when the weather allows, that thing gets to be doubled or tripled in size by engaging the outdoor spaces around it. So, would it be nice to put a 10,000 square foot building, 2-story thing on that? I guess, but I don't know what it would be. I don't know who you'd lease it to. I don't know where people would park.
Office space.
Yeah.
It'd be like a third space office, but then you can't park underground because the grade change. So it needs to be a single-story building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the flexibility.
Yeah, and I do think, as Al said, from the beginning, part of this is the creation of this open space. The corner's a tricky one. Let's provide that park. Let's provide that gathering space for people, because I think the success of the property is going to be not only the building, but the space around the building, the open space around the building that really becomes part of all of us.
It's really designed as a park with a glorified snack shop. I mean, because you need to embrace what it is. You got to, it is what it is, so might as well. I talked to John, I said, hey, it's going to be trampled, man. You know what, just embrace it. It's going to be overrun by pedestrians. These kids have no regard for anything. They're going to cut through the thing. They're going to find the shortest point from A to B. So if we create this environment, we're going to be able to foster the traffic and really kind of manage it versus sit back and say, all right, let's squeeze this in the wrong way. Let's put the building back. Let's create the traffic flow. Let's create an architectural detail that makes sense. Let's embrace it. Let's put a nice little water feature wall in there. Create a little park so people can go over there and really congregate and just use it as the way it should be.
Al, the developer in me is looking at this, trying to figure out how you manage that liability.
Yeah. So I think what you're going to have to do is put heated stairs. I think there's going to need to be handrails in there. There's going to be, you're going to have to design it so that it's, you've got limited access to things that cause pain. And we were looking at this wall, and I was like, oh, geez, kids are going to, climb up there. They're going to do this. Maybe that's a liability. If we make it, booby trap it as much as we can ahead of time, Chris, we can try to control the liability, but plan for it. And you got a kid at home. You put the rubber things around the handles, and you put the plastic things in the outlets. Realize what it is and what's going to happen to it, and plan for it accordingly. I mean,
A lot of attorneys in this town.
yeah, no, I know there's a lot of attorneys. And so somehow we'll just deed it back to you guys, and you'll love it. I'll give you a quick quid pro quo. I'll build it, you take it, and then it's your liability.
Don't say quid pro quo.
Not today, right? No, but, but I truly think it should be a village-owned asset down the road. And I think it could be a great park for you folks. And it's a great seating area for the establishment. So why not incorporate it and plan for the, disaster in the design? And embrace it. It is what it is.
Other questions?
I just want to, I know we've got another presentation, and I don't want to prejudge anything, but I want to thank, both groups. I think this underscores, I don't think in a million years we would have come up with all of these ideas pulled together in this way, and I can see a lot of benefits. Just aside from everything that we've talked about, we haven't done a great job as a village of creating a campus feel around New Trier. It's really an island, and I think that's a shame. And I think this can go a long way towards solving that. And just another practical thing, if you ride the Green Bay Trail, and I'm a fairly big biker, you can ride for 20 miles, and there is like not a good place to just get off the trail and grab a quick bite. There used to be...
Fred's.
Yeah. You don't want me in there after I've been biking. Maybe in the outdoor space. But, so just to go in for something quick, I think that's great. And then the last thing, because I get slammed on conflicts of interest, I did eat at Fred's Saturday, but, full disclosure. If you want to make it really popular, you got to bring that pretzel. Give me pretzel.
Did you pay it for it?
Yeah, I paid.
Okay, then you're fine.
Big time.
John, anything?
No, I said it was a great presentation, and again, great ideas. I love the open space on the corner.
Well, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Good presentation. A lot of really interesting ideas.
So it's just this button to advance the slides.
Which one, sorry?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yep, you go
Great.
back and forth with those
Thank
two.
you. All right. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. I'm grateful for the opportunity to present you my vision for Rovers, Custards, and Creations. My name is Sasha Georgievich, and along with my team, John Manavas, Sebastian Artelin, and Stephen Yoshida, we're happy to provide you with more details. Here's a little bit about myself before we do our PowerPoint. After graduating from New Trier High School in 2004, I decided to follow my own passion, which was food. Immediately, I started working for the Wilmette Landmark restaurant, Chuck Wagon, going through every single stage of food preparation and cooking process, learning about the supply chain and business model. My goal was to save money and to purchase the restaurant from the previous owner. I acquired a business in 2005, and I've owned and operated Chuck Wagon ever since. My customers are New Trier and feeder school students and their families, school staff, as well as both white and blue-collar professionals that work in our communities. I have many customers who started coming to Chuck Wagon when they were younger, and they now bring their children, and in some cases, grandchildren. Chuck Wagon is a well-known, especially in the student and staff community, and our customers know me personally. I know them, I know what they want in dining experience. For example, we transition much of Chuck Wagon menu to locally sourced, fresh, and healthy ingredients. Our customers know that we stand for quality and that we are a part of the community. I've been interested in the idea of Rover's Garage in this Winnetka location for many years. Many years. I've loved this location for like a good 14 years now. My goal is to open a full-service restaurant that our whole community would be proud of, and they can become a gathering place for New Trier students and staff, their family, and our broader community. The affiliation with Chuck Wagon will be instantly recognized by the students, and the affiliation with Chuck Wagon will be instantly recognized by the student communities, and the broader menu, including the homemade custard, will bring added appeal and extend the profile of our target customer. Additionally, we will introduce the Big Green Egg to our kitchen. This is not a hobby for me. I'm a restaurant operator with a strong passion for what I do and deep firsthand knowledge of the customers I serve. I'm uniquely qualified to drive business into this location given my extensive network and existing relationships with students and their families, as well as the broader community. I'm extremely excited about the impact this project will have on the village of Winnetka, as this opportunity to transition an eyesore into a beautiful gateway for the village, to generate both property and income tax as well as a rental income, to provide close dining option for New Trier for the New Trier community and the only one on the east side of Green Bay Road, which will allow students to avoid navigating a complex intersection and to connect to those using the train station to Green Bay Trail. We believe Rovers has the ability to truly transform the Indian Hill Business District and become a hub for the community. So, John, if you want to come up with me and we'll talk about the design. And I'm not the greatest public speaker, but.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for,
Exactly, exactly.
I'm John Manavis. When Sasha approached me, I right away knew that I wanted to be part of this team. We don't take on too many projects that are, this type of smaller scale. And I can tell you when we do, we typically do really great things. We actually just finished a project and actually just won a very big award for our last small project, which was actually in Paris, of all places. And I just come back from London right now with that award. So, not to brag, but we do have some talent in our team. That includes the gentleman here, but also my colleague Alice Kriegel, which is working on this project as well. She's not here actually right now, she's in Germany. So what's unique about us, which is Scala plus Mana, we're a design build firm as well. We take on limited projects that we will do as a design build. This is one which we will take on, which will mean something for the community. We know this site, it is really heavy traffic. When we start building there, it's not going to be easy for that time. So we're really trying to compress how long we're going to be on the site doing construction. And I think the expertise of bringing architecture and construction together can do that. So I'll dig into a little bit of the overall proposal, but more importantly, also the architecture. Obviously, when we were looking at this, we were trying to figure out how to best address the site. In doing so, how do we look at the community also in the neighborhood surrounding the site? We developed this mission statement and a vision primarily looking at identity as an important aspect for that site. How do we create a new identity, but then create a new identity based on everything that you all have produced, right? So there is an identity there that we can capture and then implement. So we'll look at how we plan on doing that. Obviously then to create a public space and to create a place for both the students and their families to enjoy. So our design process was, we've been working on this for a while, believe it or not, as probably the other team has. And we were, taking the feedback that we had on some of the preliminary meetings, obviously working with all the teammates that been working with Sasha. We spent quite a bit of time in reevaluating all our different decisions and, learning on how we might make the project better. I'll show you the final designs that we came up with in the sense of this round. As you know, as also the other team mentioned, this has to be a process that is done together. And it's always a bit tricky to try to figure out what that might look like without having a dialogue openly with all the different people, especially in the village. But I think we looked at all the different guidelines that already exist. So I'm going to go through all those and how we implemented those and how that reinforced what we plan on doing there. So the schemes here are playing more on the actual materiality of the building, which you can see here in the two views. So, and then the second scheme, changing the material if we're looking more at a stucco finish. Obviously, probably it's not appropriate to put an English tutor building on here, but we're trying to play off of some of those historical characteristics through the material. So to try to be somewhat unique maybe in the architecture, but to sort of root it back to the community. The other thing about the site that's unique, it does stand on an island. It's on its own. The surrounding context is landscape. So trying to play off of that, keeping as much of the landscape as we can was also critical in the sense of the 3 trees on the property. So these are a couple of the views. So looking at the site, we came up with, at this point, probably, I don't know, Stephen, 20 iterations. So the one thing that we did try to do is look at what are the potential, what do we want to keep, what we don't want to keep. We always thought that parking on the site would be a necessity, both for accessibility access, but also if we think of employee access, delivery access, to have that availability there, in keeping the position of the curb cut. So these were some of the schemes that we looked at. We just picked 3, and then pushing it even further away from the corner. The one thing, and as we get further into the site, that corner is obviously very important, but we actually wanted to blur also the difference between what would be sort of public space and what would be private space. So, let me go back, and I don't know if I guess I can point there, but sort of this blurring of the two, in this case, the restaurant running, operating versus someone who might be sitting on a bench. We try to blur that and make it more informal and not so clear of what that is. So that way there's not a, there's a comfort level of being able to walk through the site. Also looking at some of the other elements that will support someone who might be utilizing the site beyond going to the restaurant. So we'll look at some of those also. So these were, again, some of the iterations that we selected. So how did, looking at some of the market analysis, we actually just sourced, in the RFP, there was actually quite a bit of data, also looking at the master plan. So we looked at a lot of the research that you all had done already, and it was clear that, we're trying to source the local community, the local neighborhood. So this is really important. And, having a limited parking space for us is probably not an issue because we are trying to draw that population. So some of the conclusions, there is adequate, for a restaurant to be there. Obviously, we're looking at 2 proposals that are proposing that, so obviously it's probably a good idea. But also the proximity of customers that attract, cyclists or pedestrians was clearly evident in the demographics that we were reviewing. And then also this notion of looking at young patrons and how do we engage them. So in going further, as we kept on researching, we started looking at the downtown master plan, signage and wayfinding, and also the design guidelines. So we did focus on all of these parts. Obviously, probably the one that was very important was the Indian Hill entry vista. So how do we start to create an entry to the south corridor? So we started looking at, number one, what do you have already as gateway signage? How can we implement that? Also, this notion of using a mural, and the New Trier High School students already had produced murals, so we're looking to integrate a mural wall that is running along Winnetka. And then also looking at landscaping, again, what was derived straight out of the guidelines. So here is, looking at how we might create the signage, implementing that within the actual landscape that we are creating, and then behind that is actually the seating, public seating area. So the sense of arrival, landscape, creating an identity for that site was really critical. And then also looking at different amenities, all the way down to the bollards, to bike furniture. So how do we implement that? And looking at different images that might start to inspire us. And then this is how we're looking to implement that. So again, all the things that are already there that we can pick and choose from, we are looking at how we can start to engage that into the site, having even a bus shelter. All the, everyone is hanging out here pretty much, waiting for that bus if they're going to be in this area. So how do we utilize a bus shelter for that area? So pedestrian and cyclist amenities were one of the important criteria for us. Also, this notion of teen and family-friendly attractions, so how do we engage not only the young people, but also that families can bring their young families there as well. So how do we start to create that? Is something we're interested in. And then again, further implementing all the characteristics that are already in the signage and wayfinding that has been already selected, including landscaping and plants. So we really study these aspects and try to replicate it in the design. So again, talking back about the architectural aspects, I think this has to be really a unique corner, and because of its sort of solo stance there, I think we have that opportunity to do that. But then bring it back to the community through the material and how we use the different materials. So here you can see how we start to implement, either if it's going from the planning of looking at a gateway signage, looking at the sign, matching furniture and signage to have a cohesiveness, bollards to protect the walkways, so we have introducing bollards all along the sidewalk in front of that landscape barrier, which is also protecting the site, and then introducing a bus stop shelter, which again are all elements that are already within your criteria. And this is how that might look in a different texture and material. And this is, you can see where, this is a photo not too long ago, believe it or not, but because I don't know what happened. But yeah, you can see already, everybody's looking for shade, everybody's waiting for a bus, so that's why we've really thought that this line was somewhere we can start to engage and create that sort of public way.
Can I just say that there's a really awesome bus shelter there right now, clearly.
We're keeping the trees.
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize there wasn't any shelter at all. I never thought of it. Yikes. Yeah.
So again, a little bit of the same, but looking at the site again, we feel there's an opportunity to potentially keep some of the parking on the site. That might alleviate, the hours where you cannot access Lot C. So I think it's something that we would still consider. How we start to implement all the various elements. This wall here, whereas we propose that we would have New Trier students to be able to do a mural. This is something they've done already at other location, at I believe one location at least.
Yeah, on the corner.
Yeah. So to sort of extend that and have some ownership is maybe some way to engage the students as well. And then how we anticipate access, which is fairly obvious. And again, we count on foot traffic. That is, obviously, we're not going to have a capacity for parking, but after 4 p.m., that could change, obviously. But I think the neighborhood is something that's really important. So schedule, how do we pull this off in 8 months? Again, this is something that we feel pretty confident we can do fairly quickly. We hate to see a site, especially like this, stay under construction for a long period of time. And we have the capacity to be able to, depending on, again, how the permitting and how the final design documents are produced, but we would move fairly quickly to try to get the site ready within 8 months, and potentially 6 months construction. So it's not an easy task, but it's something that we've done in the past, so. So yes, this is the end. Thank you. Did I miss anything, gentlemen? No?
I think we're good.
That's a good question.
I have a quick one. I'm sure it was in a document somewhere. How many square feet is the building?
It's around 2,000.
Okay. Thanks.
Stephen, it's right around 2,000, yeah.
I have the same question that I did for the other team in terms of, given the fact that a great deal of the school year is inclement weather, is there any possibility, I mean, how do you envision handling as many students as you would like to during the not great weather? Is there any flexibility in terms of the outdoor seating, in terms of how you would use that?
Yeah.
What are you thinking?
Sasha, I don't know if you want to add, and how you, I mean, there's a couple ways to facilitate that. One is through service, how fast you can, are people sticking around, how long they're sticking around for. Again, trying to make the building larger would be one way, but I think it's going to be a standing room only sometimes,
Okay.
which might be okay, especially for those peak periods. Unfortunately, you see our weather right now, you wouldn't want to be outside. And I think heated, to try to facilitate, a larger space, then I think it makes sense to either A, build it a bit bigger, but we haven't gotten so far where although we're starting to show seating and we're starting to understand how many seats we might be able to support in that building, I think it wants to be the size it doesn't want to be an overscaled building. So it might be, it is what it is. Now, we are trying to create, we're creating a canopy there, so we're creating protection, but it's not going to be protection from this weather. And
There isn't much protection from it.
yes. And where we've done projects, where we've done outdoor and we've done enclosed, we're talking 40, you're hitting 40s and then you're with blankets and you're with heaters, and it's also not so, it doesn't also look so good sometimes. So that would be, I mean, if we were sitting down and said, what would be maybe making it slightly larger, looking how to, optimize the kitchen and try to squeeze as many seats out of that would be probably the way to do it on the interior. So through designing, furniture selection and how we have maybe some fixed seating might be a way to start to control that number of how many people we can fit.
Good, okay, thank you.
Yep.
Sasha, you were a New Trier student?
Yes.
And you're in the restaurant business, so we've talked a lot about the physical space. I'm just wondering, with your experience, which is sort of unique for this, what do you think a New Trier student is looking for when it comes to food? What do you think they need?
Well, I've had the chuck wagon since 2005, and big part of my clientele is, it's pretty much all New Trier students.
Yeah.
And they come in, for a few certain items that I have, which I will introduce to rovers.
What are those? What are the most
The
popular?
Nicky Special,
Which is?
a prime burger with gyros meat on top. They love it.
I'm sure.
They order it.
I'm
80%
sure.
Which is a grilled cheese with gyros meat, grilled onion, tomato, and tzatziki sauce on the side. But on top of all of those chuck wagon items, we will have many other healthy options and vegan options, and this is going to be a bigger place.
Yeah.
So we're going to have, so it's going to be a little different and kind of like a souped up chuck wagon in a way.
Got it.
It was nice to see the menu as part of your.
Thank you. Thank you.
on the parking again, so we're still, maybe it's just mandated, you can only go in from the, going north and go that way again, is everything coming in from the north and then out to the north?
Yeah, you cannot cross that.
Okay, so that's just
Yeah.
the way it is.
It is, yeah, because of where you are in the vicinity of the intersection.
And your thought on only, I don't know, 7 or 8 parking spots? Seems pretty limited.
I think it was,
Oh,
yeah.
there'll be the other place, a little south, the commuter lot will still be there.
So the idea is that those spots would be utilized, from morning till 4, until, people can then start parking south. So the idea is to still be able to utilize the parking lot to the south, but until you can't do that before 4 PM. So,
Do you have a barrier between those? I can't really
Yeah.
tell.
Yeah, they're
Really is.
maintaining,
Right.
so this is the existing
Step
curb
over.
cut.
yeah, I mean, we haven't gone so far of altering that site, but I think that connection, I think at some point this was in the original proposal, was to utilize, yes, the lot to the south when it's available. But I can see this, also for employee parking, or all the employees be able to walk, this would be, cycling and walking there will be great, but reality is sometimes people aren't cycling or walking in this weather, so.
What were the hours that you were planning? I'm sorry, I can't find them.
I think 11 to 10. 11 to 10 maybe?
Yeah, but we might do earlier, we might want to get a morning rush, so it's not
That was
100%
a-
11
yeah.
to.
Oh, Was there a reason for not picking mornings now? Is it just because it's expensive to man the place and you might not pick up enough coffee and donuts?
No, but when I started rethinking about it, I think doing a few breakfast options for the kids, for instance, that are going to school would be a hit. So I think if we get this, I think we will open earlier and have some cool morning options for the kids, which I think they will enjoy.
Do you think you'll have, I mean, were you thinking about the commuter market in terms of people who are either on a train or, driving down Green Bay going to work?
Yes, I mean, once they come back from work and they get off the train, they can come pick up some good homemade, food. I want pretty much everything at the restaurant to be homemade. So yeah, after work, bring home dinner, absolutely.
Or breakfast?
Or breakfast, when they're going to work.
So you actually see a dinner service as part of the business plan, then, right?
I do, and then we are gonna do custard as well, which I think will be a big hit at Winnetka. I don't know if anybody's been to Andy's Custards, for instance. It's amazing, and I love it. So custard at Winnetka, people after dinner, wherever they're eating dinner, would come there to have custard and dessert before they go home, I think would be a huge hit. That nice restaurant across the street from there, which is not Michael's anymore, I think,
A boy.
yes. Even after they have dinner, come there for custards, I think would be.
Oh, steal their customers.
Well, after.
Go there for the cocktails, come here for custard.
And that's why I think it'd be great to open a little bit later, most likely in the summer than in the winter. Winter hours, we would have to figure out, but summer, definitely a little bit later, I think would work great, so.
Well, Homer's seems to do well with a similar menu. I think your menu looks better than what Homer's is offering now. And they have ice cream, which frozen custard, I
Right.
guess, is in the same
A little
ballpark.
different, but sure, Homer's has been there, for a long time.
Well, there's a market, it seems, for your idea of being open later and
Yes.
having this kind of food
I agree.
as well as
I
the
agree.
dessert kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
More questions? I just have one I've been scratching my head on about the design. You got scheme 1 and scheme 2. Is it just a different treatment of the?
Different material for the exterior, yes.
And how does 3 work? I didn't see a picture of 3 scheme.
Yeah, we didn't render that one. That one is sort of turning the corner. Sorry, I'll go back. So this is if we're trying to get more, if we're trying to make sure we're not encroaching too much, to the west, but still try to have a building presence in size do we start, pulling it more to the south.
Is this, do you favor this one, or do you favor, the other two seem to be the ones you like better?
I mean,
Is that-
when you see the existing position, this is playing off of close to where the existing property is now. So this is where we're at. Scheme 1 is where we're at, but I think, with all these proposals, you produce this in a way that you're flexible. So the key thing is we're still trying to, if, once we get it, then although we probably put in, I don't know how many, months on this, then we start even, tearing it apart and looking at it again and seeing what the, especially also, working with the village to see what would be the best approach. But, yeah, this is where we sort of ended up at.
Other questions? Great, well, thank you very much.
Welcome, thank you.
Presentation, really-
Thank you.
Really wonderful ideas.
Thank you.
Megan?
I don't have any further comments.
Okay. I wanted to make sure I lost my packet, so I'm not sure where I am in the scheme of things. Well,
No, I think they both covered the topics that we asked them, tonight, focusing on their concepts and layout of the sites, as well as their visions for how these fit within the community and the considerations of the downtown plan. So those were all goals and selection criteria that were included with the RFP. So I think from our perspective, both teams have been responsive to all of those questions that were raised.
great. Well, personally, and I think as a council, we definitely want to thank both the respondents. Really interesting ideas. I mean, we're new at this as a village as far as public-private ventures. We're taking it in baby steps so that we, have a good understanding of how things work and how they're supposed to work and what sort of dimensions we should be considering. And so really what tonight was about was just getting to know both the teams and understanding, your perspectives. We'll probably start drilling down a little bit more in the finance component. Some of that will probably be in executive session due to the nature of the transaction. And certainly a lot of questions will be coming out of that. And I'm sure what we'll end up doing is having some sort of follow-up conversations as well. But it was important for us to get this out, let the community, and you can see how interested everybody was. I'm assuming everybody from your team is all sitting here, right? And
That's what I was just thinking.
it's a big family, I mean.
I'm just a neighborhood resident.
Oh, you are?
I don't know if I can ask questions or speak, or
Why don't
I
you
don't
come
know
on
what
up?
the protocol is.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, come on up.
Yeah, not part of either
Are there-
one party.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
I just sat down.
Thought you were part of
Could I see a show of hand? Is there anybody else here who's not a member of of either team? Oh, great. Would you like to join the conversation too?
I mean, I don't have any comments. I mean, I think they're both, really well put together schemes. I'm excited to see something happen this morning. So, obviously, these folks have done a great job at Fred's, and obviously, you see some of those influences, I guess, in the design and the approach. So,
Yep.
I'm eager to see it get developed.
Great. Well, thanks for coming out tonight.
I would just say, I appreciate both
Could you
parties.
identify yourself?
Sorry, I'm Tom Del Carlo. I live at 66 Abbotsford, so I'm right at Abbotsford and Warwick, right there. So I've lived there about 3 years, so I missed the gas station phase, but I caught the end of the Maserati dealership phase. And as much as the abandoned lot is fantastic, I'm super excited about it. Whatever the village decides to do, the teams, thank you very much, appreciate that. I was just going to comment, I think there's a big focus on the student population, which is fantastic, obviously. I mean, you move here, New Trier's a block away, it's obviously a big focus of my life. I have kids who are 4 and 1.5, so someday, but, for me right now, my focus is more on, safety, pedestrian safety, traffic, little kids. I'm sure everybody here gets the joke. I would just say, I think it's important just to keep in mind that this is a school area, but it's also a neighborhood area. So just not to lose sight of the fact that there's a lot of families and neighbors and people like that we would like to have a space where we can go and spend time as residents as well. And so, you know, I think for my personal, I mean, I've just listened to both presentations. I read the stuff before I came. I went through the PDFs and looked at it. I think my focus would be preferred more of a daytime operation. I take the Metro train, something you can go pick up a coffee, pick up a breakfast sandwich, something like that, as opposed to a place that be open 10, 11 at night. You know, I think we already have that at Homer's. Like, it exists. There's a great teen ice cream hangout shop. They did it. Like, no offense. I'm sure your presentation is fantastic. It's nothing against that. It's just more like, I like the idea of more of like a daytime operation. Families, myself, my wife, my kids, you know, you drop up to school, you go pick something up. It's not an 11 a.m. thing, it's a 9 a.m. thing. You know, in that location, you've got the Starbucks at Elm Street, you've got the Pete's on Elm Street, you've got the Starbucks over at Plaza del Lago. Kenilworth downtown is abysmal. So there's really nothing there besides a 7-Eleven. So for the neighborhood residents, you know, that Sears, Greeley, New Trier, I mean, you lived over there. It'd be nice something you could just, you know, Saturday morning, I'm going to go walk and grab a coffee. You know, I think that's something that that area needs. I'm not a developer. By the way, I have no interest. I don't know anybody else here. So this is just me. I'm not a plant. But just as like somebody in the neighborhood, like that would be my preference. Also, you know, we touched on, you guys all touched on it. That corner is insane with pedestrians. I mean, you go over there, you'd think like a stadium was getting let out every single day. So I definitely would agree, like whatever the plan is in place, I would focus on, the students are just going to run roughshod over everything. So, I mean, I love the natural scenery and I love all that, but I think just making something that's indestructible, you know, definitely would prefer that. So yeah, I mean, I think I really, really appreciate both groups, but just being a Winnetka resident, the fact that one team has already done a gas station remediation, like I just think it makes sense to like, you know, it's going to be problems. I just did a renovation on my house. It was twice as long and twice as expensive. So like, it's probably going to be the same thing with this site, especially if it used to be an industrial location. So I would just, my recommendation would take that in mind. Whatever you guys decide to do, like it's, I'm sure you guys know me. It sounds like you were a developer in the past as well. Like it's going to be a difficult site. So anyway, I just want to say thank you both very much for your time. I just, as a neighborhood resident, it's not all about the students. I mean, I'm going to have kids who are students. Like nothing against the students. It's just we live there too. So just sometimes we're kind of in the southern part of Winnetka, and sometimes we get a little bit like, hey, we're in Winnetka too. Like it's not like just because we're not on Elm Street or the Tree Streets or whatever. Like it's like, wait, are you in Kenilworth? Are you in Winnetka? Like we're there, we're in Winnetka, and you know, Kenilworth, North Kenilworth too. I mean, like there's a lot of walking areas that can get to that location as well. So just, you know, please keep that in mind in your decision-making process.
We haven't forgotten about you.
I know, and
Well,
You got a $4 million water main project coming really soon.
yeah, I'm excited. I can't wait for summer. My summer is going to be Warwick construction. And I got my
Sorry about
stop
that.
sign, so I'm happy. I got my
There you
stop
go.
sign. So no, I'm a big, yeah, nothing but positive things, but just, you know,
But-
something to keep in mind.
But, you know, totally to your point, I was part of the development of the last comprehensive plan, and the recommendation was made to purchase that piece of property for that very reason, because they're, you know, where are the New Trier students to go? And they were hanging out at the park at the Indian Hill Park, and there was a conflict between, you know, sort of the play lot and the students hanging out there. And White's Drugstore had been sort of hangout, and, you know, 7-Eleven was tough. It was back then with White Hen Pantry, because the kids would be hanging out in the parking lot, and, you know, clients couldn't get in. So, you know, really the question is, where would be a good place for New Trier students to hang out, which was part of the recommendation of, you know, purchasing that as a park for them. So these ideas which are being brought forth, and I'm thrilled that both teams really have that concept in mind. You know, how can we provide good places for young people to hang out? But it will be a balance in terms of how can you make it for the high school students as well as for young families. So believe me, I'm very aware of that.
I don't know if you were going to, I'm
Or
sorry.
old families,
Yeah.
Penny.
Oh, I know, old families, yeah, well, I mean, I really ran into that when I had little kids, it was hard, you know, you have these little bodies together with these big bodies, it's tough.
I was gonna say the other thing, I don't know if you're gonna have more of like, I didn't realize this was maybe more of a developer presentation, but if there's more of like a public comment like that for the neighborhood and things, I'm surprised that no one else, I mean, it's a big corner, a lot of people live here, there's no one else here, so I don't know if people just are busy or don't care or whatever, but, or it's cold, people are lazy, I don't know, but, yeah. So anyway, but thanks for your time, I just wanna
Thank
make
you.
sure to have that.
Appreciate you
comment.
coming out, too. Come on up.
Kathy could pick him up in the
utility. Where is the access point to the Green Bay Trail in this?
Oh, around the corner.
There's stairs.
Across Winnetka, on the other side of the train tracks. There's a ramp.
There's
Because
stairs,
in
yeah,
addition to
yeah,
the
there's stairs too.
populations to be served, the high school, the neighborhood, I think what you mentioned, Andrew, the cyclist component within 20 miles.
Yeah.
You know, that this development, whatever direction we choose to go, I think it really is a wonderful gateway to these cyclists and access not just for pre-existing cyclists, but for new people to continue to use the Green Bay Trail. It's a great gateway, so great job.
Well, it's nice to have those destinations. I remember when my kids were younger, you know, the big challenge was to get up to the Botanic Gardens. Not because it's pretty and nice, it was because there was food at the end, and it was a place to stop and goof off a little bit and munch, and then we could ride home. And, you know, certainly a facility like this can serve that sort of a function as well. So the more we can give those sort of destination opportunities with the recreational piece, it's just going to make the trail that much better. And we are actually looking at a lot of strategies for how the trail is used and how we might end up upgrading and making that a more upgraded element in the community as well. So,
Selfishly, I've got little kids and big kids in my house, and I need to get them the hell out of the house. They're destroying the place.
Oh, so now we know why you're on the council. Find places for your kids to go.
There's like
Got it.
40 of them in my house Sunday.
I can guarantee you, you're not missing the Depot Diner, though. So. Okay. Well, that's it then, folks. I think we'll just wrap it up here. Does anybody have anything else to add?
No.
Great. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Voice vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Okay, now I'm really hungry.
I know.
I know, I'm like,
Man, yeah, exactly. Give me that hamburger with gyros on top. Wow.